Welcome, everyone. I'm Sandra Bargman. A few years ago, I wrote and performed a solo show called The Edge of Every Day, which was an exploration of the rough edges and contradictions we all face and grapple with. The show hit a nerve, and the relevance of the topic would only grow over time more than I could have foreseen. So, here we are. Real talk with real people, sharing stories and perspectives that spark provocative invitations to leap out of what's safe, on the edge of every day. Thanks for listening. Hello, everyone. We are live in the Hive. Thank you for joining me on this, the 46th episode of The Edge of Every Day here on TalkRadio.NYC. For those of you who have become loyal listeners, thank you so much for spending time with me and my guests. Our numbers keep growing, and I have you to thank. I couldn't do it without you. Please continue to share this podcast with friends and family, and take a moment to subscribe to my YouTube channel, Sandra Bargman, on the Edge of Every Day. And if you're tuning in for the first time, welcome. I'm so happy you found me on the edge. Please, everyone, feel free to ask questions in the chat during our conversation, and my guest and I will do our best to answer them. And of course, I urge you to check out my past episodes of the podcast with my inspiring guests. You can find them on TalkRadio.NYC, on your favorite podcast platforms, and on my YouTube channel. Again, that's Sandra Bargman, on the Edge of Every Day. This show, it's about pushing boundaries and exploring rough edges through conversations and shared stories with friends and colleagues. It's my hope that we can begin to understand our edges. And what I mean by edges is those places where we are fearful, those places where we are resistant to change, those places where paradoxes and contradictions live in our beliefs and in our understandings, both about ourselves and about the world around us. Listen, we live in edgy, tumultuous times, and people are complex. The more we recognize our own edges and get real about them, the more we can help others to do the same. And that, I fully believe, can help to change the world. So, thanks again for tuning in. And without further ado, it is time to introduce our guest this week. John Cottrell is originally from Oakland, California, and now resides in Salt Lake City, Utah. John is formally educated in clinical psychology, having earned a Master of Science and Ph.D. from Pacific Graduate School of Psychology in Palo Alto, California. As a clinical psychologist, John has a broad range of experience, including child and adolescent psychotherapy, drug and alcohol treatment, psychological and neuropsychological testing, and group couples therapy. John has always been fascinated with fitness. While still working as a psychotherapist, John taught fitness classes ranging from weightlifting to hip-hop dance aerobics, adding yoga to his fitness routine in 2000. He's been able to use his education in psychology and his devotion to fitness and yoga to understand and offer the benefits of a mind-body connection. As a certified yoga instructor, personal trainer, and sports nutritionist, John offers a variety of ways to create healthy living. John also started his own business, Mbody, in 2008, and offers yoga therapy as a certified yoga therapist, nutrition coaching, personal training, private and group yoga lessons, workshops, and retreats. Mbody also offers its own men's yoga clothing line designed by John and marketed to studios on a national level. John's latest venture has been in writing. He just self-published his second book, Some More Yoga, Please. It complements his first book entitled Yoga with Intention, a yogic life journey from awareness to honoring. Welcome, John Cottrell.
Thank you so much, Sandra. Oh, wow. This is wonderful. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
Oh, it is such a pleasure. You are a burst of warmth and sunlight and wisdom. And I am so excited that you popped to mind. Well, I'm going to tell you how it all happened. So I like to share with my guests with my listeners, how I know my guests. And John and I met. I was interviewing him for a series of videos that we were creating for a place that both John and I work within. It's a wellness center, Perfect Fit Virtual Wellness, and it's run by a mutual friend of ours, actually a college friend of mine, David Corder. So shout out to Perfect Fit, shout out to David Corder. But as an introduction for me to come into the group, I came in as what we eventually called the life anatomy leader, more of the spiritual take on the mind-body connection. And you came in as a virtual yoga instructor. And I interviewed as a means of getting to know me through the interviews, as well as the staff. David and I set up interviewing everyone, and I had a marvelous conversation with you. Absolutely marvelous, that I revisited recently. I forget why. And I thought, I have to invite John on the show. And so here you are.
That's fantastic. Well, again, thank you so much for having me. And I love that we had that connection, our initial connection through David, a wonderful mutual friend, and how this really just kind of developed. And I think it really has transpired in the way that it was supposed to happen, just manifested this way.
Indeed, 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 indeed. And so David's place, Perfect Fit, is a membership communities, and the staff is primarily from that area, but also from outside that area. And yeah, we had a marvelous connection indeed. And I also had the great pleasure of getting a yoga therapy session with John, and his warmth and wisdom and insight was palpable. It jumped out of the screen. And I love how cool you are with teaching online. I mean, this is that silver lining we talked about in that interview about COVID and things going online. And you're back teaching in person though, yes?
I am teaching in person, but I continue to teach online because those students that were taking my classes online, they were, as things were starting to shift, they were worried, like, John, are you going away? Because these were students that were not in my area. They're from, different states and different areas of the country, and they didn't want to lose that connection. I said, oh yes, I'll continue doing these online. And so I have all through this. And just to make it clear to your listeners, Sandra and I did this yoga therapy session online. I typically do them in person. I do them in person, and I do them online, and ours just happened to be online.
Yeah, totally. It was fantastic. And you inspired me, as I shared with you, and I'm sure many of our listeners, well, some of them certainly, that you would think with my mystical musings and leanings that yoga would just be a natural fit for me, but it has not. I have not gravitated towards it. And I'm more of a throb to the disco beat kind of gal, and which you and I also share.
We do.
So it was really great you really ignited something in me in terms of wanting to pursue yoga. And again, it's your warmth and insight, and the connection with the mind and the body, and all of the depth questions that you asked. So I'm going to dive in with this first question that I'm totally loving using. I was asked this question, and I actually also heard it on someone else's podcast, and I just thought it was fantastic. Particularly, I'm attracting the guests that I'm bringing on. Do a variety of things. They merge a variety of things. And so I like to ask people this question out of the gate. What identity do you lead with? What identity do you lead with?
Ooh, wow.
Isn't that interesting? And there's so many directions you can go with that.
Oh.
And yeah, and it's been fascinating to watch how people have worked their answer out as they've given it. It's really a cool question.
It is a cool question. What identity do I lead with?
Well, as a psychotherapist, as a yoga instructor, as a fitness person.
Well, and it's funny because those are like titles, those are things that I do, but I'm not sure.
Maybe not that you lead with.
It's not what I necessarily lead with. It's, gosh, this is a tough one.
Well,
but I'm leaning towards, I don't know, it seems a little vague, but it leans towards just how I show kindness, how I want to show my love and appreciation for someone. And I say that because I think I recently discovered, a little bit more about what my love language is and how I show my appreciation and love for people. And that's through cooking and baking. And so, and so I find so much joy when I'm in the kitchen making up a batch of cookies or something, and I get to share that with my closest friends and family. And I think so. I think that's what I lead with, even if I don't have that plate of cookies. I think I would hope I still have that same kind of presence.
Yes, that's exactly the word. You lead with presence.
With, when I'm with people, as if I had that plate of cookies.
Oh, I love it. Let's break bread, not break bread. Let's break cookies together. That's fantastic. Well, and my answer, I last week, I had somebody who asked that back to me, and my answer shifted from the first time I had said it. I said I probably lead with my comedy, the comedian first, and I would lead with more of the spiritual leader or wisdom keeper portion of myself. But I really got to I really last week really got that I think really I lead as an edge walker.
Ooh, yeah.
Somebody who it's not by accident that I've clued in on the edge of every day, I've really come to see how that's a deep platform for me. That's really how I view the world, and that liminal space between the shadow and the light, and liminal. That's so this is the story in our pre-chat. This is a story I wanted to share. So a friend of mine came over for brunch yesterday. And she's a new friend, and she said, you live in liminal spaces. And she doesn't. I was shocked that she said that to me, and I said, I actually said that in the chapter that I wrote for. I contributed a chapter to a book on the shoulders of mighty women, and that's an actual sentence in it. And it dawned on me, I thought of this while she said that, and I was explaining to her that indeed I do, and I relate very much to liminality, which is not the way who you were before, and not who you are to be. It's this liminal space in between. And I thought of you. I thought of your work as a psychotherapist and as a yoga instructor. In these conversations that we have, we want transformation. Ritual is that liminal space, but it's the same in all of the work that we do, that liminality. So we're going to have to go to break, our first break. And because I've mentioned ritual, and I've been recalibrating and wanting to add ritual into each episode, I'm going to finish out this particular section with a beautiful invocation. It's a riff on the one that I did last week, but I've added some more on John's behalf. You who are as vast as the universe, and you who are as personal as a heartbeat, help me always to speak the truth, to listen with an open mind when others speak, and to remember the peace that may be found in silence, The wisdom of the universe is truth, and this wisdom and truth flows through me. Help me to be a person of truth in all that I do and in all that I say. Today, tonight in this conversation, and always, open my heart and understanding to the wisdom of both the light and the shadow, to honor the space of the liminal, to honor the edges of every day. Open the gate of consciousness through the beauty and power of our voices and allow each of us to be seen and heard more fully. And so it is. So that completely speaks to the presence with which you walk in the world. It's beautiful. So we're going to jump to break, folks. And when we come back, we're going to dive full on into yoga therapy and all the incredible work that John Cottrell is putting out into the world. When we come back on the Edge of Every Day, stay tuned.
Are you a business owner? Do you want to be a business owner? Do you work with business owners? Hi, I'm Stephen Fry, your small and medium-sized business or SMB guy, and I'm the host of the new show, Always Friday. While I love to have fun on my show, we take those Friday feelings of freedom and clarity to discuss popular topics on the minds of SMBs today. Please join me and my various special guests on Friday at 11 a.m. on TalkRadio.NYC.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant. And on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays, 12 noon on TalkRadio.NYC.
Are you on edge? Hey, we live in challenging, edgy times, so let's lean in. I'm Sandra Bargman, the host of The Edge of Every Day, which airs each Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on TalkRadio.NYC. Tune in live with me and my friends and colleagues as we share stories and perspectives about pushing boundaries and exploring our rough edges. That's The Edge of Every Day on Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on TalkRadio.NYC.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Chipping around, kick my brain to the ground. These are the days it never rained, but it pours
On the Edge of Every Day. And we are back with yoga therapist John Cottrell. And we're going to dive right into yoga therapy, what it is. But before we do that, I do want to hear how you discovered yoga. Tell us that story and your desire to teach, and then move into that big aha moment when you merged, you saw how to merge your psychotherapy work with yoga.
Wonderful. You know, I think yoga was an accident.
Yes, a brilliant. I know, because you were a throb to the beat of the you know, and your
Oh, yeah.
I love your whole story about theater. Yeah, share that with us.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I, from Oakland, as you said in the introduction, moved to Salt Lake City to do my psychology internship with the intention of actually going back to California, but I ended up staying here. And really, everything has really emerged and evolved wonderfully while being here 20 some odd years.
Wow.
Part of that was, working as a psychologist full time. But like you, was in theater way back when, dancing, singing, choreography, the whole bit. And then there was dance aerobics, jazzercise, and all of that fun stuff.
Yep.
And so I really got into that. And while in Salt Lake City, I found this little gym, and they were offering some really fun kind of dance aerobic classes. And that's kind of my gym experience. Like that's what I would go to the gym to do, was go to these aerobics classes, because they were dance classes, and loved them. Well, this little gym that I was going to was offering these classes, and actually eventually began teaching there, and just teaching these music inspired weightlifting classes. And while I was there as an instructor, the owner started teaching yoga on Saturday mornings. I thought, that seems interesting. I knew kind of what yoga was about and was very curious. And so I took a class, and I was instantly in love with it. And here's why.
Captured.
Because it reminded me so much of dancing. It was a flowing, moving class. It felt like choreography to me, and it just felt like home to me. And so I was instantly in. So I just started practicing. I went and taught my class, and then I did this yoga class. And I did that for about a year and a half. And one of the instructors said, "John, you're really quite good at this. You should be a yoga instructor." And again, not knowing much about yoga and how to become a yoga instructor, not that I was I was interested, but I thought, don't you have to go to India to become a yoga instructor? I really thought that. And they said, no, you can actually get trained right here in Utah. And so I did. So that began my journey of, being a yoga instructor. And I just taught one class a week. I was still working as a psychologist full time, but then I had my little fun thing on the weekends where I taught my fitness class, and I started teaching a yoga class too.
Oh, lovely. And then you had your big aha moment where the two merged.
The two merged. It was interesting because the way that I visualize it, because I was working as a psychologist, it was one path. And then I was teaching yoga, and over time I was teaching more classes in various places, but they were these two roads that ran alongside each other, but they did not merge. I just saw them as two very separate things until I landed a job running a yoga studio within a fitness facility. And so it came with the management and leading other instructors, hiring instructors, teaching classes, and for the first time I was doing individual lessons. I had always taught group classes. And so I had an opportunity, because we got to do it in this space, to do individual one-on-ones. And that's when it clicked that, wait a minute, psychology and yoga actually do merge. Because what I found that I did with these students is they came into the studio, we sat down just like we would sit down in my psychology office.
Talk therapy, right?
Yeah, we did a little bit of talk therapy, got to learn who they were, what they were dealing with, what some of their issues were. And then we did yoga. From what they were presenting, in my head, I was imagining what yoga poses would we do? What kind of movements would we do to help address what they were talking about?
Right.
And so that became the dim light for me at first, the dim light of, wait a minute, yoga is therapeutic. This is therapy. And the more that I did that, the brighter that light got. And I really did have an aha. I had an ultimate aha moment, which was I had a wonderful opportunity of taking a trip to Peru and working with a shaman. And that's when I really had the aha. It was sent to me. I was just this open vessel, and the answer came to me. And the answer to my question of, what am I going to do with this? What's my next step in this journey? And it became so clear to me. It's like, you need to move away from that corporate identity and move into what you are really meant to do, and do yoga therapy. And at the time, I called myself a yoga life coach. And that's when the light was so bright, and I shifted my career plan, shifted away from the formalities of psychology and went towards yoga life coaching and eventually yoga
So
therapy.
you're not doing any kind of psychology at all, formal at all?
No,
No,
not
it's
in its
all
formal.
funneled. It's all funneled into this merging system. So, what
Absolutely.
are some of the just for the people who may not understand specifically
Mhm.
how psychotherapy works and what the mission of psychotherapy, as I understand it, and you of course will elaborate on this, is really the whole body, like the edge of every day, really the whole body, the understanding of both the shadow and the light, and the whole overall, both the positive and the negative, if you will. And how is the mission of, how does it really align in specific ways? And what do
Right.
you bring to
Mm.
some of your sessions that make it not like normal, that's specific to you? It's not like a normal yoga session.
Right. Well, yoga therapy, it really is a holistic approach to dealing with the individual and what they might be dealing with.
Mm.
And in the components that you might find in kind of traditional or standard yoga therapy would be breath work, okay, pranayama, breath work, learning how to breathe, because it's a great tool for helping with anxiety, for example.
Right.
Teaching someone to breathe properly and take, deep
Of
breaths.
course.
So breathing, asana, which is postures and movement. And that's a big piece because you are using your body. And I think that's one of the main things that's quite different from perhaps the more Western way that we do therapy, where you might be, sitting in an office or a space and you're just talking. It's talk therapy. There's not any, there's no body movement typically.
Right. And nobody speaking.
Correct. And so when there's this movement and this flowing aspect in yoga therapy, it opens up a whole new, language and voice for the body to speak. There's other components. So we've got movement, breath work, Ayurvedic medicine, and that might be just to make it simple, just your diet, what you eat, what you ingest. And because all of these components are very they're holistic, they work together in unison, and putting into the right kind of recipe, so to speak, people can make some wonderful progress.
Now, and in psychotherapy, do they lean more towards drugs? So medicine, so food is the drug of choice with yoga therapy, as opposed to more drugs that we would stereotypically think would be prescribed.
Exactly. I would even say yes. So if diet is talked about, then what you ingest, food, yes. And but even just the movement, the breath work, I consider that medicine as well. Because when I work with my students and clients, I prescribe, using air quotes here, I prescribe movement. I prescribe breath work. That's the thing that they take home with them and practice and use at home. That's their medicine. And they do that daily.
So how is this yoga therapy really, because your background in mental health, this is what intrigues me so much about yoga therapy, is that you are combining this intense mental health work with your yoga, which is probably every yoga instructor or fitness instructor believes to a certain extent they're doing that, of course. But with your training, it just is extraordinary. So how are you dealing specifically with clients with trauma per se, or large grief, or addictions?
Right. What I bring to the table, and I think, I'm quite fortunate because I do have this psychology background. And so I really use a lot of the Western, parts of therapy in this Eastern tradition of yoga and using yoga therapy. And so when I'm working with someone, let's say it's trauma, like early childhood trauma, for example, one of the main questions that I'll continue to ask, but also that's kind of floating around in my head, is as they're speaking and describing what they're feeling, I often ask, where does that show up in your body? Where does that show up in your body? What does it feel like? And, and just really get into the nitty-gritty of that, because that helps me, it helps us really to identify, what the core issue is. We can really understand what that sensation is. And then we shift to the yoga, whether it's breath work or asana, the postures, because the postures, they all have meaning. And it's medicine. And so we work with the signal pieces, a yoga pose, a yoga movement, a breath exercise, to start to understand the issue, the core issue.
Wow. Well, and in terms of it's diseases that are sparked from depression, from trauma, from addiction, from all of the mental health issues that we face, and to be able to engage the body in a way that it also speaks, as you said, it also has a voice, and that you can stave off those things, not only for the mind but for the body. This is absolutely fascinating. We've got to go on a break, but when we come back, we will pick it up. We will hear all about Mbody and John's books and continue to tease apart this mental health combined with yoga. When we come back with our guest, John Cottrell, on the Edge of Everyday. Stay tuned.
Are you passionate about the conversation around racism? Hi, I'm Reverend Dr. TLC, host of the Dismantle Racism Show, which airs every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern on TalkRadio.NYC. Join me and my amazing guests as we discuss ways to uncover, dismantle, and eradicate racism. That's Thursdays at 11 o'clock a.m. on TalkRadio.NYC.
Are you a small business trying to navigate the COVID-19 related employment laws? Hello, I'm Eric Sauber, employment law, business law attorney, and host of the new radio show, Employment Law Today. On my show, we'll have guests to discuss the common employment law challenges business owners are facing during these trying times. Tune in on Tuesday evenings from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern Time on TalkRadio.NYC.
Hey, everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on TalkRadio.NYC, I host a program, Philanthropy in Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on TalkRadio.NYC.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Chipping around, kick my brain to the ground. These are the days it never rained, but it pours on the edge of every day.
And we are back with John Cottrell. So real quick plug. I just hearing in those commercials, Dismantle Racism podcast with Dr. TLC. For those of you listening in, you'll recall that I had her on my show. We had a fantastic conversation about dismantling racism. She's got her own show on Talk Radio on Thursdays at 11 a.m. Go to my YouTube channel, Sandra Bargman, On the Edge of Everyday, and you can access that conversation. And I'm going to be on her show on Thursday, December 15th. That's Dr. TLC with Dismantle Racism. Check us out. It's going to be a fantastic conversation. So, but now we're back with the glorious John Cottrell. So, without overstepping confidentiality, is there a particular case in point that you can share with us that where yoga therapy exceeded your expectations, or really was a stunning session or group of sessions?
Yes, absolutely. When I think about it in general, comparing what I do now as a yoga therapist compared to just being a psychotherapist in a more traditional sense, I was working in substance abuse treatment, and the clients that I had, I was working with them literally for years, years. They'd come week after week after week and saw them, every week for years, literally. And they made progress, but it was very slow progress, but it was progress. When I made the shift to yoga therapy, because of this more holistic component and the moving part of it,
Yes.
even folks that were coming with pretty significant issues, relationship, jobs, substance abuse, trauma, I would see them maybe 5 or 6 times. And then there'd be a start, a middle, and an end. After those 6 sessions, they felt and I felt that they had enough tools to take with them and move forward.
Wow.
And I think it's because of the prescription of try this at home, try these yoga poses at home, try these breathing exercises at home. The intention with all of this, and I want to make this clear as far as what I think I bring to the table as a yoga therapist, is my intention is to help someone, whatever the issue might be, to clear their path. There's a type of meditation called Vipassana, and Vipassana means to see things clearly. And that's, I think, my intention, to help people see their lives clearly, to see the truth in who they really are. But we're blinded by so many obstacles. And I always put my hands in front of my face to visualize that.
Yeah.
But we walk in our world as if that's normal. And so with the yoga therapy work and just yoga in general, I'm helping people to pull the curtain to the side, to drop that veil, to break down those walls so that the light can shine in and they can see their path clearly. They see who they are for who they really are, the truth of who they are. And when they have that perspective, that new illuminated perspective, they're so empowered.
Yeah.
And not that the trauma goes away or that the depression completely goes away. They just now have tools that help manage it.
Yes.
They're able to just put it aside so
And
it's
not be
not
triggered.
distracting. Yes. So they can move forward.
Beautifully said. Beautifully shared. Thank you. So how have you been changed by this work, John?
I've learned so much
Mm.
from the people that I work with. And it really did start with the substance abuse treatment work that I did. It really taught me about the human condition and how and what we do as humans to feel good, to feel better. And although I was working with heroin addiction, opiate addiction,
Wow.
and having never done that myself, but we were the same. It just made me think of, well, what do I do to cope? What do I do to feel better when I'm anxious? What do I do to feel better when I'm feeling sad and overwhelmed? What do I do when I've experienced trauma? What are my coping skills? We're all the same. We all have coping mechanisms. And so it's really opened my eyes to, really look at, well, what do I do? How do I take care of myself? And does it work? Because maybe some things that I did as a teenager or a younger adult, yeah, it probably worked back then. But if I try to use those same strategies today, there's no way.
Yeah.
And so it's helped me to, see things more clearly, what's more appropriate and healthy for me each and every day. And I think what I do, reflects that. I like healthy eating. I love playful eating, baking cookies, right? And even indulging in the things that I love. But also paying attention to, is that serving me? Is that serving me in a healthy way? It's keeping my path and vision clear. Because if I can live this way, I know that I can pass that on to friends, colleagues, and the students and clients that I work with.
Absolutely. Indeed, you do. You passed it along to me. So let's talk about Mbody in your books. So let's dive into Mbody. What was the impulse for that, and what's the story around that?
Yeah. Well, Mbody in my brand in the business.
And he spells it Mbody.
Yeah, it's the letter M-B-O-D-Y. Mbody. And so people say, what is that? Mbody? Mbody? I said, just say it. Like embody. Oh, embody. And that was part of the vision quest in Peru.
Wow. I love it.
Yeah. I had the name and I was using it for something else, and I can't remember how I even thought of it and used it, but I was using it for something else. But when all this was coming, to fruition, I thought, what can I call this? And I just used Mbody and just kind of snagged the name.
Right.
And at first it was yoga life coaching, which turned into yoga therapy, yoga classes, retreats, etc. And eventually I wrote a book. And the book is Yoga with Intention, a yogic life journey from awareness to honoring.
I love that title.
Thank you. With the main focus on that first part, yoga with intention.
Mm.
Really stepping onto your mat with an intention. Why are you here? Why are you here?
And do you feel that there's not a book like, pardon me for interrupting, a book like, I'm intrigued why you felt compelled to write a book about the yoga experience. But I would rest assured that it's because of your take with the mental health and the psychotherapy.
I really wanted yoga to be approachable. I wanted it to be something that anyone could do, even if you thought you couldn't do it, even if you never stepped into a yoga studio, that it was something that you could integrate into your life. And that's what Yoga with Intention is. It's really like, it's a short, small, easy book. It's more like a handbook. It's one of these books where you can just kind of open up to any page, and it has kind of a life lesson or circumstance, a life circumstance, a real life circumstance that someone might be dealing with. Like, I'm stressed over a business meeting I've got to lead or whatever. What do I do? Right. So that's the life circumstance. And then I provide just a short little exercise. It might be a little breathing exercise that I explain and, and give the instructions on how to do it. Or it might be a yoga pose, just one yoga pose, and I describe how to do it and maybe some of the benefits. And it literally should only take you like 3 minutes to do the whole thing. And so it's just
for the busy lifestyle.
For the busy lifestyles, for the everyday person, that you can just open up this book. Oh, here's a great little thing. Oh, I can integrate this into my life.
Yeah.
So that's the intention.
It's fantastic. And because yoga does need that. People do, it does have a bit of a thing around it, a bit of a vibe around it. You're absolutely right. And the therapeutic understanding that you bring to it, I'm sure shines through in the writing, and then shines through in the next book that you just completed. Correct? What's the name of that?
It's Some More Yoga, Please.
That's right. I like that. It's like, can I have some more yoga, please? Yes.
Exactly. So it's a compilation actually of articles I was writing, and I still write yoga articles, blog posts, things like that. And they range from, learning about yoga history, yoga philosophy, just what is yoga, to, how to do certain poses. How do you do downward facing dog? What's cat cow, just these odd little things. And then these same kind of life applications. For example, like I think one of the articles is Yoga for a pregnant woman who has restless leg syndrome. Like, whoa, pretty specific, right? And so I developed a short practice on, some yoga poses that a pregnant person could do with restless leg syndrome.
Wow. That's
So,
fabulous. I should have my, I have two people in my life. They're not pregnant, but they do have restless leg syndrome. Have them check it out.
yeah, so it's just a compilation of articles I wrote over a period of 2 years, I think. And it just, like I said, it just ranges from all these things. So you can just kind of thumb through and like, oh, this seems interesting. What's this about? And
I love it.
just,
I love
yeah.
it. Sort of and allow the what you need to hear to emerge.
Yes.
And both of these books you can find on Amazon right now, but they're going to be put on your website. I read that. Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
And your website is
JohnCottrell.com.
that's 2 T's and 2 L's.
And 2
.com.
L's.
And also Mbody.com. Yes.
Yes, Mbody.com is actually my men's yoga clothing line.
Which we're going to get to when we come back from our break. Your fabulous clothing line that I told you I wanted to get a pair of those shorts. Yes, we need to take a short break, folks. But when we come back, we'll hear about John's beautiful clothing line, and we'll talk about what's on his leading edge and where you can find him on the edge of every day. Stay tuned.
Hey, everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on TalkRadio.NYC, I host a program, Philanthropy in Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on TalkRadio.NYC.
In a post-COVID world, you may have many unanswered questions regarding your health. Are you looking to live a healthier lifestyle? Do you have a desire to learn more about mental health and enhance your quality of life? Or do you just want to participate in self-understanding and awareness? I'm Frank R. Harrison, host of Frank About Health, and each Thursday, I will tackle these questions and work to enlighten you. Tune in every Thursday at 5 p.m. on TalkRadio.NYC, and I will be frank about health to advocate for all of us.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant. And on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays, 12 noon on TalkRadio.NYC.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Chipping around, kick my brain to the ground. These are the days it never rained, but it pours on the edge of every day.
And we are back with John Cottrell talking about yoga therapy and Mbody clothing. Mbody clothing. So tell us about this clothing line. What was the inspiration for it, and what is the mission behind it?
Right. Well, Mbody.com and Mbody, the clothing line, it's wow, I think we're in its 12th year. And so about 12 years ago,
Wow.
I remember teaching at a studio, and I remember someone coming up to me, a student came up to me and said, "Hey, where can you get men's yoga clothing?" And at the time I was like, well, you know what, there's not much out there. As far as I've seen, there's a few websites that you can get men's clothing, because everything was really geared towards women.
Right.
And a friend of mine that happened to be listening in, and he heard this conversation, and he came up to me and said, "Hey, John, if you have any interest in actually creating a clothing line, I have some connections. I know someone who has a company that manufactures and builds clothing, sports clothing. And so you might want to have a conversation with them. And I was like, sure, why not? What can I lose? And so I had the conversation. It really inspired me. I was like, well, how do you even design clothing? And she said, well, just tell me what inspires you. What do you like to wear? And I said, well, I like comfortable shorts, and I like tank tops, and I like muscle shirts. And like, okay, well, let's create something together. And that's really how it all evolved. And so Mbody, it's a men's clothing line, but anyone can really wear it. But I really wanted to target men because at the time, not many men were practicing yoga. And like I said, there wasn't many sites where you could buy men's yoga clothing specifically. And so I wanted to have something for guys. And I wanted it to be comfortable, functional, and affordable. A lot of yoga clothing is expensive. I want it to be affordable. I want it to be functional, where you could wear it to the gym, you could wear it to a yoga class, you can wear it out on the town. It doesn't look like yoga clothing. Right. It's just some cool shorts with some pockets, a nice tank top. And it's not with flashy designs and anything. They're just solid colors. You can mix and match pretty easily. And that's the line. And it's
just very gender neutral, actually. Yeah. Oh, it sounds great. And all of this can be found at mbody.com.
Correct.
All right. And folks, this will all be in the show notes. So you don't feel like you need to write it all down. It'll be all in our show notes. Okay. So I love you are a walking edge of every day with your melding of these Eastern and Western philosophies into a cohesive, and yet you're dancing between the two, and you've created something that unifies them both, as Jung would say, the dance between polarities. I just love that. So what edge are you navigating in your life right now, personally?
It's really that integration of all the things that I do, because just out on paper, it looks pretty random. All the things that I enjoy doing, love to do, and I get inspired by so many things, but how is it all related? And so I think part of my edge is trying to keep it all contained so I don't feel so scattered, right?
I know that problem.
Right. And so, and as of late, which has been interesting, I've been so inspired. I talked about clearing, that pathway and having clearer vision. I think I personally experienced that recently, and it just opened me up. And I've been literally flooded with ideas and creative ventures. And it's been this challenge for me to kind of hone it all in, and which direction do I go, and how many of these things do I really do, and still have a life, right? So I recently wrote, actually just a couple days ago, I just needed to write it all down and to compartmentalize it, I guess, or to make it a nice container that felt, I guess, rational. And it really all fits under my Mbody brand. When I think about Mbody, it's like a wheel with spokes, and the spokes are all the different things that I do. It's the yoga therapy and classes, et cetera, all the very, literal yoga things that I do. Then there's this yoga clothing line, and that's about, bringing perhaps more men to the table around yoga and having more people experience yoga and having something fun to wear. The yoga writing, the articles that I write, the books that I've put out, so it's accessible to people. But I've got these other things too. As far as the writing, I've been writing and creating mandalas. And the mandalas are just a way to sit and meditate. It's a wonderful way to meditate.
Mm-hmm.
So I've just published a couple of mandala coloring books. They're on Amazon.
I love that.
and here's the other thing I've mentioned. I love baking. And I have a website. It's called One Cake Wonder. And it's
perfect.
One Cake Wonder. And it's inspired by an uncle of mine, actually my aunt and uncle. They were great cooks. Actually, a lot of my family members are great cooks, but they in particular were wonderful bakers and made pound cakes. And so I was inspired. And so I make pound cakes. And so the website, One Cake Wonder, are just pound cakes in different flavors and iterations of them. And I said, well, how does this fit in the Mbody brand? Well, of course it does. We want to indulge ourselves in sweetness, right? Why not?
I love it. That's part of that M is magic.
Yeah.
Yes.
So yes, I think that's kind of my edge as of late, is just how do I kind of bring all of these things together so I don't feel so scattered, but it all makes sense and it's all part of the vision, the mission, and it seems like it directs me. It's like, yes, this is the path I'm supposed to be on. I'm doing it right. I'm doing okay.
You are doing a lot right, my friend. And this hour has flown by and I have to get into my closing now, but I'm glad we got to touch on all of these things. You've just described one of my 3 life rules. Paradox. One of my 3 life rules. The other paradox. Life is a mystery. Stay open and curious. If we hold the tension between 2 opposing forces, a third way will emerge that will unite the 2 original. And that's exactly what you're going through right now with all of your incredible creative ideas. The second rule is humor. Hello, humor. Keep a sense of humor because we all need it, particularly in today's edgy times. And last but not least, change. The only constant in life is change. So learn to accept it. Those are my 3 rules, John.
I
so
love
how
it.
We've said it before, let's say it again. Where do we find you? JohnCottrell.com.
That's right.
Mbody.com.
Yes.
You also have a kick-ass YouTube channel. What is that? It's Mbody Yoga with John Cottrell. Is that it?
That's exactly it.
Yeah,
that's
it's
exactly it.
Unbelievable, people. Run, don't walk. I'm going since my session. Just a wonderful array of classes on his YouTube channel. Do you have any last words of nuggets of wisdom for our listeners?
I'll say one last thing about, how you can reach me, because johncottrell.com is kind of the everything. But if you are interested in doing yoga therapy, want to set an appointment, you would go to Mbody.org. And so it's a scheduling system, so you can set up a session with me.
Got it.
Nuggets of wisdom. I have to reiterate what you mentioned. It's just sense of humor. Have a sense of humor. Go in it with a smile. Don't take things too seriously.
And yourself first and foremost.
Right? Oh my gosh. And just laugh. Just enjoy life. This is all we've got. Make the best of it. Enjoy it. Clear those paths so you can have that truthful experience in this realm that we're in, and just enjoy it.
Amen. Beautiful. Beautifully said. Well, folks, this is it. John Cottrell, I thank you so much for being a guest on the show. Thank you for sharing your warmth and your wisdom with us this evening.
It's been wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you, Sandra.
And thank you to all of my listeners. Remember, you are always at the edge of the miraculous. See you next time.
This is our last dance. This is ourselves under pressure.